Chapter 3 Decorations and Distractions. Sunset Shimmer was lying on her living room couch, about to start playing her favorite video game to help ease her stress, before she heard yet another door knock. Exasperated, she answered without fully trying to put on a good mood, but was a little surprised to instead find Twilight Sparkle, her glasses-wearing friend, acting more humbly than even AppleJack managed to.
"Oh, hey Twilight,"
she said, attempting to sound polite.
"Hello, Sunset Shimmer. I don't have any plans, and you don't seem to either. So, you just want to go on a friendly little walk?"
Sunset was reluctant to answer at first, but after a few seconds, finally decided on the best choice for her.
"I guess I could."
She dropped the controller that laid in her hand, put on a small smile, and politely exited the house, wearing her thick black leather jacket. She made sure the door was locked behind her as she left the apartment, but that didn't stop the girls. As soon as Sunset Shimmer was out of sight, which was admittedly below average thanks to the wind and snow, the girls moved from the back right corner of the door. Once again, Pinkie Pie was of helpful assistance. She pulled the pot to the right of the door, a few inches past the surface, and sure enough, there was Sunset's spare key, taped to the wall.
"Photographic memories from when she locked herself out from that one girls' night,"
she said, proud that she happened to be around at the same time.
"Well, it's at least a better explanation than the journal,"
Rainbow murmured.
"Let's talk more decorating,"
Rarity said, not wanting to judge Pinkie even further. She took out the rough sketches she had made, which translated the pony tribe's outfits as illustrated on the book cover into more human shape.
"I have some dresses to make."
At that moment, she rushed out the door, but tried not to be too noisy about it. Hardly any time passed before Sunset Shimmer's living room was bustling with activity. Rainbow Dash was filling the back walls with traditional fluorescent lights, similar to those surrounding her banister. AppleJack lent some leftover materials from her family film, mostly rustic-colored paper and hard plastic, to ensure a classic homey feel to some picture frames she was tasked to build. Pinkie Pie was passionately painting on a very large sheet of paper, with a variety of blues, purples, and a little of several other colors to create a truly celestial image, a recreation of the first flag of Equestria. While Pinkie brought the kind of energy that made the work truly shine on its own, Princess Twilight constantly checked to make sure she properly followed the example she was given. Fluttershy had some aqua yarn and a sewing needle at her disposal, sitting on the far end of the slightly hard but comfortably angled couch. She calmly began knitting smaller, far less ambitious clothing for a few of her animals. When Princess Twilight gave herself a moment to breathe, she held a few small slips of plastic in her right hand. Panting, she told the excited group,
"When Princess Celestia heard about this idea, she decided to help me out by lending me some old pictures of her."
The girls all gathered around to see them. Sure enough, they depicted Sunset, not just younger, but as a pony. Some of them showed her studying under the tutelage of the equestrian monarch, while others showed her at home, happily celebrating the holidays. None of them showcased her family, but none of the natives really took notice of that. Instead, they were focusing squarely on Sunset's natural form, having never seen it before, and occasionally being curious as to what their best friend used to truly look like.
"So that's what she looked like back in Equestria,"
AppleJack said with fascination.
"Oh, even I didn't think she'd be this adorable,"
Fluttershy cooed.
"I know, right?"
Pinkie Pie agreed, her finger petting one particular portrait.
"I'm never gonna see her the same way ever again."
Rainbow Dash had a more modest look, but still looked fairly impressed.
"I didn't think their ponies would look like that, but I guess she does make for a pretty awesome looking pony."
"How is everything coming along anyway?"
Princess Twilight asked, having mostly kept Pinkie Pie in check for the longest time.
"Super duper!"
Pinkie Pie replied, bouncing around.
This is going to be one fantastic Christmas!
Sunset and Twilight walked through the quiet, night-lit streets of downtown Canterlot City. There was barely a car to be heard, but there were a number of kids and parents gleefully playing various snow games, or just having a happy time together. While Sunset couldn't help but find all this charming and just how wholesome and cheerful it was, she would always turn her head down to the partially covered pavement. They had been out for about 20 minutes, although they didn't do much discussion, apart from occasional small talk. Twilight had mostly been following Sunset, wanting to make her comfortable by letting her walk the way she wants to. This came to a sudden stop, however, when the main centerpiece of the city's festivities came into view. A big Christmas tree, stuffed with ornaments, bells, and orbs, creating a colorful, downright gorgeous sight, shining radiantly to all its surroundings. Several people stood closer to the tree, sometimes swapping, and the lights from the tree rotated in a manner that made it dance off the buildings, snow, and roads alike. Sunset slowly looked over it with an almost blank expression, remaining almost motionless, until Sci-Twi gently put a hand onto her left shoulder. She just briefly glanced back at the purple girl, then turned her head toward the tree once more with a content sigh. Twilight Sparkle took a good glimpse at the decorated, near-symmetrical fur in the distance. She most definitely appreciated the sight, and it was aesthetically pleasing for sure. But she was much more curious at Sunset's near-mesmerized state. Thus, she finally let out her first words in quite some time.
Isn't this such a pretty tree, Sunset Shimmer?
Yeah.
Sunset quietly replied. She was evidently letting her mind wander off as she was content. Twilight was personally hoping for more of a response than that, but seeing her friend be legitimately happy at something involving the winter holidays was definitely enough for her. So she continued to observe the tree, the small but growing crowd surrounding it, and all the little lights shining to and from it. The framed portraits and hanging lights would have looked fantastic and festive by itself, but combined with everything else inside the little corner in her tacky apartment, it was simply starting to look garish. It didn't help that the 6 costumes Rarity had made from some leftover materials in her personal workshop, while nice looking for a rush job, were a little too colorful for their own good. AppleJack, having just finished her last picture frame, old photos of Sunset inserted and everything, was the first to catch on to this.
Girls, I like these pretty bells and whistles as much as the next gal, but don't you think this is getting a little unfocused?
Rarity, closest to her, scooted towards her and spoke quietly.
For once, I'd have to agree with you, darling. There's flashy and fabulous, and then there's
She looked back at the near-complete project.
disorganized and ugly.
Yeah, but
Fluttershy joined in, sounding nervous.
Princess Twilight does have first-hand experience in the holiday. If anyone knows what heartwarming decorations would look like, it's her.
The 3 looked at the visitor, who was talking to Pinkie Pie about the party plan, gesturing her arms all over the place as she did. AppleJack sighed.
Yes, I suppose we should just take her word for it. After all, Twilight here is organized to a frankly obsessed degree.
Rarity had suddenly pulled out her phone, and after a few seconds of scanning, she let out an alerted gasp.
Sunset is coming back!
Oh, better hurry all the finishing touches.
Princess Twilight suddenly announced.
Make sure everything is perfectly organized and that not one thing is out of place.
As Sunset Shimmer's townhouse was within sight, she and Twilight Sparkle took their time as they wrapped up their surprisingly nice walk. They spent a good hour or so analyzing the picturesque sight that beheld their eyes, and it seemed to make Sunset a little more outgoing throughout the long trudge back.
I told you there was something to appreciate about the holidays.
Twilight said smugly.
Yeah, I'll admit it was always my favorite thing about the season, even back when I first appeared in this world. I still wish I had a family to go to, but even I know I shouldn't make it a complete bummer.
You got us, though.
Twilight said, in a matter-of-fact but still sincere manner.
Thanks, Twilight.
Sunset smiled as the two stopped in front of the door.
But it's not the same. You wouldn't understand.
Twilight wanted to answer, but she saw Sunset taking out her door key, and thus didn't want to interrupt what was waiting on the other side. When Sunset finally opened the door, she was greeted with,
Surprise!
And there she was, shocked and frozen as she looked at the crowded sight in front of her. 6 familiar girls of varying colors, each of which was wearing a marginally less familiar getup. She then acknowledged a reluctant angel bunny, as well as a few other small creatures, dressed in a full-body light blue sweater with googly eyes glued onto them. It's just like the heartwarming pageant she used to watch when she was a filly. And then there were the picture frames, depicting herself as a filly. One was her happily showing off her magic, alongside Princess Celestia herself, while another was the last family portrait she ever took with them. Sunset felt her heart warming, and her mouth was quivering. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. She even finally recognized Princess Twilight Sparkle herself, dressed in a Clover the Clever-esque brown robe. She gave the entire display one last look around, and finally, giving in to her conflicting emotions, exited back through the same doorway she came in, immediately letting out a few noises that the group could barely make out as sobbing.
Clearly this did not go as planned.
Princess Twilight said out loud, growing more concerned by the second.